You've been told your whole life that playing it safe is the smart move. Stay in your lane, don't take unnecessary risks, keep your head down, and everything will work out fine. But here's what nobody mentions. Safety isn't free. Every time you choose the comfortable path, you're actually paying a price that compounds over time. And the strange part is, the longer you play it safe, the harder your life becomes. Today we're going to explore why the safest choices often lead to the most difficult outcomes, and how protecting yourself from small discomforts can lock you into much bigger problems down the road. Think about the concept of safety for a moment. What does it actually mean? For most people, safety means avoiding anything that feels uncertain or uncomfortable. It means sticking with the job you don't like because at least it's predictable. It means not having difficult conversations because you might face conflict. It means keeping your money in a regular savings account because investing feels risky. On the surface, these choices seem rational. You're protecting yourself from potential negative outcomes. But what's actually happening is that you're trading long-term freedom for short-term comfort. And that trade gets worse as time goes on. Let's start with the most obvious example: career decisions. Imagine someone who stays in a job they've outgrown because it feels secure. They know the routine, they know the people, and they know exactly what to expect every single day. The salary covers the bills, and there's nothing urgently wrong. But here's the invisible cost. Every year they stay in that position, they're not developing new skills that the market values. They're not building a network in growing industries. They're not positioning themselves for opportunities that could multiply their income. Meanwhile, the world around them is changing. Technology evolves, industries shift, and the supposedly safe job starts to feel less secure as the company restructures or automates processes. 10 years later, this person finds themselves trapped. They want to leave, but now they lack the relevant experience for better positions. They've played it safe for so long that they've actually created a much more precarious situation. The safe choice made life harder. The same pattern shows up in financial decisions. Many people avoid learning about investing because it seems complicated or risky. They keep their savings in accounts that earn virtually no return, thinking they're being responsible and cautious. But inflation is constantly eroding the purchasing power of that money. What felt like a safe choice is actually a guaranteed loss of value over time. 20 years later, they realized that their careful approach to protecting their money meant they couldn't afford the future they imagined. They played it safe with their finances, and now they're facing financial stress that could have been avoided with earlier, more strategic decisions. The irony is that trying to avoid the discomfort of learning about wealth-building principles created a much more uncomfortable reality. This pattern extends into relationships and social situations as well. Consider someone who avoids difficult conversations because they don't want conflict. They never express their real opinions, never set boundaries, and never address problems directly. This feels safe in the moment. It avoids awkwardness and keeps things smooth on the surface. But what's building underneath? Resentment, frustration, and a growing distance from the people around them. Eventually, the relationship either falls apart completely, or they find themselves living a life that doesn't reflect who they actually are. They've been so focused on avoiding the small discomfort of honest communication that they've created a much larger problem, a life built on avoidance and inauthenticity. The safe choice of staying quiet made their relationships harder to maintain and less fulfilling. Here's what's really happening with these safety-focused decisions. When you choose the comfortable option repeatedly, you're not staying in the same place. You're actually moving backwards relative to everyone else who's taking calculated risks and learning from experience. Life doesn't have a pause button. The world keeps changing whether you participate or not. Markets evolve, skills become outdated, relationships require maintenance, and opportunities have expiration dates. Playing it safe doesn't freeze your situation in place. It just means you're not adapting while everything around you continues to shift, and the gap between where you are and where you could be gets wider every year. There's also a psychological dimension that makes this pattern even more destructive. Every time you choose safety over growth, you're reinforcing a particular identity. You're telling yourself that you're the kind of person who can't handle uncertainty, who needs everything to be predictable, who isn't capable of navigating challenges. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your comfort zone doesn't stay the same size when you protect it constantly. It actually shrinks. Things that used to feel manageable start to feel overwhelming. Your tolerance for discomfort decreases, which means even small changes feel threatening. You become more rigid, more anxious, and more dependent on everything staying exactly as it is. The safe choices didn't make you more secure. They made you more fragile. Let's examine another angle. Safety-focused thinking often means focusing exclusively on what could go wrong while completely ignoring what could go right. When you're evaluating whether to start a side project, learn a new skill, or have an important conversation, your brain automatically highlights all the potential downsides. You might fail, you might look foolish, you might waste time, you might face rejection. These possibilities feel very real and immediate. But what about the other side of the equation? What if the project succeeds and opens new doors? What if the new skill makes you significantly more valuable? What if the conversation deepens your relationship or resolves a long-standing issue? These positive outcomes are just as possible, but they get less attention because they require you to move through discomfort first. Safety-focused thinking has an asymmetric view of risk that makes every opportunity look more dangerous than it actually is. Consider the concept of optionality. Every choice you make either expands or contracts your future options. When you invest time in learning a valuable skill, you've created more career options for yourself. When you build a relationship based on honest communication, you've created more possibilities for that relationship to evolve in healthy directions. When you develop financial literacy and start building assets, you've created more freedom in how you live your life. But when you play it safe, you're consistently choosing paths that reduce your future options. You stay in the job that teaches you nothing new, so you have fewer options when change becomes necessary. You avoid financial growth, so you have fewer options when opportunity appears. You skip difficult conversations, so you have fewer options for authentic connection. Safety feels like it's preserving your options, but it's actually eliminating them one decision at a time. There's an interesting paradox here. The people who seem to have the most security in their lives are usually the ones who took calculated risks earlier on. They invested in themselves when it was uncomfortable. They had difficult conversations when it mattered. They made career moves that felt uncertain but aligned with their long-term vision. They learned about financial principles and took action even when they didn't feel completely ready. These strategic risks are what created genuine security, the kind that comes from capability and options rather than from clinging to familiar circumstances. Real security isn't about avoiding all risk. It's about developing the skills and resources that allow you to handle whatever comes your way. And you can't develop those things while playing it safe. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or impulsive. There's a massive difference between calculated risk and foolish behavior. Calculated risk means evaluating potential outcomes, preparing as much as possible, and accepting uncertainty in exchange for potential growth. It means starting a side project while keeping your job, not quitting with no plan. It means learning about investing and starting small, not gambling your life savings on speculation. It means having the difficult conversation in a thoughtful way, not exploding in anger. The point isn't to abandon all caution. The point is to recognize that avoiding discomfort entirely is its own form of risk, often a much more dangerous one than the alternatives. Let's look at how this plays out over a lifetime. Someone who consistently chooses growth over comfort in their 20s and 30s ends up with dramatically more freedom in their 40s and 50s. They've built skills that are in demand. They've created financial resources that provide options. They've developed relationships that are genuine and supportive. They've proven to themselves that they can handle uncertainty and come out stronger. Meanwhile, someone who played it safe throughout those same decades finds themselves with fewer options, more anxiety, and less confidence. The gap between these two life trajectories is enormous, and it came down to thousands of small decisions about whether to choose temporary comfort or long-term capability. The other trap of safety-focused thinking is that it makes you dependent on external circumstances staying favorable. If your sense of security comes entirely from having a stable job at a particular company, what happens when the industry changes? If your financial security depends on nothing ever going wrong, what happens when unexpected expenses appear? If your emotional stability requires that everyone around you behaves in predictable ways, what happens when people change or leave? True security comes from internal capability, from knowing that you have the skills, resources, and resilience to adapt to whatever happens. And you can't build that internal capability by avoiding everything that challenges you. There's also the factor of regret. Research into end-of-life reflections consistently shows that people's biggest regrets aren't about the things they tried that didn't work out. Their biggest regrets are about the opportunities they never pursued, the chances they didn't take, and the authentic life they didn't live because they were too focused on staying comfortable. The temporary discomfort of taking action fades quickly, but the long-term regret of inaction can last a lifetime. Playing it safe might help you avoid short-term discomfort, but it often creates a much deeper discomfort years later when you realize how much possibility you left on the table. So what's the alternative? It starts with recognizing that discomfort and growth are connected. Every time you feel that resistance, that voice telling you to stay where you are, that's often a signal that something important is on the other side. It's not a guarantee of success, but it's a sign that you're at the edge of your current capability, which is exactly where growth happens. The alternative is to start making decisions based on who you want to become rather than who you currently are. Ask yourself, will this choice expand my options or limit them? Will this build capability or dependence? Will I be glad I did this, or glad I avoided it, when I look back in 5 years? This shift requires changing your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid at all costs, you start seeing it as the price of admission for a better life. You accept that you won't have all the answers before you start, and that's okay. You understand that mistakes are part of learning, not evidence that you shouldn't have tried. You recognize that the feeling of being slightly in over your head is actually a sign that you're growing. This doesn't mean you'll never feel fear or doubt. It means you stop letting those feelings make all your decisions for you. The truth is that life gets harder when you play it safe because you're not building the strength to handle life's inevitable challenges. You're like someone who avoids exercise because it's uncomfortable, then wonders why everyday activities become more difficult over time. The discomfort of growth is optional and temporary. The discomfort of stagnation is mandatory and permanent. One path makes you stronger and more capable. The other makes you weaker and more dependent. The choice of which discomfort to accept is yours, but you will face discomfort either way. Here's your challenge moving forward. Identify one area of your life where you've been playing it safe, where you've been choosing comfort over growth. It might be your career, your finances, your relationships, or your personal development. Pick one specific action you've been avoiding because it feels risky or uncomfortable. Not something reckless, but something that could genuinely improve your situation if it worked out, and take that action this week. Start the conversation you've been postponing. Apply for the position that feels like a stretch. Set up the meeting you've been avoiding. Open the investment account you've been putting off. Whatever it is, prove to yourself that you can handle more uncertainty than you think. Because the life you actually want is on the other side of that discomfort. If this perspective challenged your thinking or gave you a new way to look at your decisions, make sure to like this video so more people can see it. Drop a comment below about which area of your life you're going to stop playing it safe in, and subscribe for more content that helps you think strategically about building a better future. Remember, playing it safe isn't actually safe. It's just slow decline disguised as stability. Choose growth.